All right, we're going to get things started here real quick. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Welcome to Tax Free Tools. My name is Robert Everett, and I'm excited to be with you here today to discuss the three secrets that will immediately protect and preserve your wealth and how you can liberate yourself from taxes and market loss. I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about what is going to make this different tonight. What sets us apart is that we're going to go deeper into education and into detail, and we're going to challenge some long-held beliefs. Uh, well, questions things that many of us have been told our entire lives. For example, how many of you have heard that you'd be in a lower tax bracket when you retire? Ideas like this are exactly what we're going to talk about today. We'll address them head on, provide clear, straightforward answers. That's our goal, at least. So ultimately, we want to give you some powerful aha moments, insights that you can generally transform your financial future. And as we move forward, my goal is to dive in as deeply as possible and to get you the maximum value for our time together tonight. Over the course of my career, I've seen some reoccurring dangers and concerns that many clients talk about. And truthfully, fear when it comes to their money, especially when it comes to the money they simply cannot afford to lose. Some of the greatest fears our clients have surrendered around taxes, inflation, market volatility, and overall economic uncertainty. So we can see this acronym here. It spells out time, doesn't it? Right there. Time is our greatest asset, but it also can become our greatest liability. If we're not careful, uh, we want to make sure we want to ensure that we never run out of money or resources. Simply put, we want our money to last as long as we do or longer. Also, we're going to help you address and overcome some negative impacts of taxes, inflation, market volatility, and economic uncertainty by focusing on the three core principles of a oops, solid financial strategy. Over the course of my career, I reviewed and helped people implement many different types of financial strategies. What we've consistently learned is this: the number one principle of financial independence and long term success is liquidity. You must have access to your money if and when you need it. Of course, we also want strong assets. We want safety, and we want our money working for us. Ideally, we want liquid assets that are safely earning returns. You'll hear me talk more about this as we move forward, including what I refer to as a laser fund, a strategy designed to give you liquidity, safety, and growth, all working together. So again, the three biggest dangers that we really want to address in today's webinar is one, the threat of rising taxes. Two, inflation. And finally, number three, market volatility. Now, many of you have been maybe already picked up a copy of this book here. But if you haven't already seen a copy of Doug Andrews' best-selling book, The Laser Fund, I'm going to show you here today how you can get a free copy of this book. So stay with me throughout the webinar, and I'll make sure you receive a free copy of the Laser Fund Guide. We'll walk through it together, and I'll teach you in more detail exactly what we're covering today. After more than 45 years of experience, Doug emphasizes the importance of liquidity, safety, competitive rates of return, and compound growth and tax advantages. What we really want to understand, though, is how all this works together and how it allows you to optimize your assets and ensure that you never run out of money. One of the biggest concepts that Doug talks about in the Laser Fund is what he calls the miracle of compounding interest. I've seen this miracle firsthand through my own career, and I've seen what it can do for people. And yet, most people truly just don't truly understand or can fully grasp the power of compounding interest. If we can understand it, we can protect it. If we can protect the miracle of compound interest and preserve it over time, well, it becomes the key not only to creating financial independence, but to maintaining it for the rest of your life. Now, I want you to do a quick exercise I want you to do a quick exercise, okay? I want everyone to really bring this concept to life. Albert Einstein talked about compounding interest as one of the most powerful forces in the universe. So I want to make sure we all understand that. So I want you to, if you can, take a piece of paper, just a simple piece of paper, an 8.5 by 11 sheet if you have one, or any kind of piece of paper. And once you have that piece of paper, this is going to illustrate the miracle of compounding interest. Now I want you to fold that piece of paper in half. Now I want you to fold in half the other way, nice and tight, make nice tight creases, fold in half a second time. Now you're folding back and forth like hamburger style. And we're going to show you a quick question here. A quick fold it one more time. Now your paper should look like this, something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? Now, as we pull that nice and tight, we don't want it to be bouncy. We want it to be nice and tight. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many times do you think you can physically fold a sheet of paper? How many times? Now, a lot of people agree it's everywhere from 6 to 7 times, maybe 8 if you have super strong fingers, but 6, 7 times before you can't fold it anymore. So, since we can't physically fold this piece of paper anymore, we're going to ask you to use your imagination, right? So now we have this sheet of paper folded a few times. Now with nice tight creases. I want you to imagine that you folded this same sheet of paper 50 times. If you could do that, how thick do you think this sheet of paper would be? So take that piece of paper, unfold it. I want you to guess, and I want you to write your answer down real quick on this. Just give me an estimate on this sheet of paper. Maybe I would say inches, um, feet, even miles. How thick do you think this sheet of paper would get? Now, if you're sitting next to someone, your spouse, someone else who's on this webinar, go ahead and share your thoughts. See, what do you guys think? How thick do you think it's going to be? Some people would say 2 inches. Some people might say 7 inches. Every now and then, once in a while, you get something that's like 100 feet or it's 10,000 miles. I don't know. And, somebody shout out 10,000 miles, everybody started laughing, right? But step back and think about this. Every time you fold that sheet of paper in half, it doubles in thickness. One fold is like 2 sheets of paper, two folds, 4 sheets, three folds, 8 sheets, and on 16, 32. It keeps doubling, right? So if you're actually able to fold this sheet of paper 50 times, it wouldn't be inches or feet, would it? It would be approximately 93 million miles thick. Yes, 93 million miles thick. That's the distance from the Earth to the sun. Now, when you think about that for a moment, that's absolutely mind-boggling, isn't it? Uh, if you want, while we're on here, go ahead and fact check me. Google it. Fold in a sheet of paper 50 times, see what you get. You're going to get approximately 93 million miles thick. See, that's what Einstein was talking about when he said the human brain struggles to truly grasp the miracle of compound interest. It's not the math that is wrong. It's our minds. Our minds aren't wired to comprehend exponential growth like that. And this miracle of compound interest is what we're going to focus on. Also, secure, protect, preserve, and maintain all this. So we want to make sure it's not destroyed by taxes, market volatility, inflation, economic uncertainty. Now, let me ask you a simple question. If it took 50 folds to reach the sun, how many folds would it take to go back to the earth? It's not another 50. Remember, each fold doubles. It would take one fold and you would actually go past the earth, right? Because it doubles. So think about that. The power of compounding interest. Yes, it is a miracle. It completely changes how we evaluate financial strategies. So the question now becomes, how do we pursue this miracle and how do we protect it over time? If you're trying to develop a financial plan or a long-term financial strategy, what's more important? Selecting the right investment or having the right strategy? See, I agree. It would be the strategy, wouldn't it? But most people just jump from investment to investment to investment, always chasing what they believe is the best opportunity. They're not following a strategy, they're just pursuing the next investment. So let me ask you this. If you were to enter into a professional golf tournament this weekend, what would you prefer to have in the tournament? Would you rather have a professional golfer's clubs or would you rather have his swing? I'm a big golfer, so I don't know about you, but I think I would rather have his swing, right? Otherwise, we would have tens of thousands of professional golfers because everybody owns a set of golf clubs. And see, the swing's worth tens of millions of dollars, not the clubs, right? We would all buy clubs, become professional golfers. It's not in the clubs, it's the swing. So this is what makes what we're going to talk about different because we're going to dive into this to make sure you understand the swing. We're going to discuss some clubs and things like that. In fact, with the principles we're going to be teaching today, you might even be able to swap out your clubs and still be very successful, just like that professional golfer. But it's because of the swing. And the principles are going to teach you that we're going to teach you can be applied across the board. We're going to share with you some of our favorite clubs that really tend to enhance our particular swing here. Now, when you focus in on the swing, that's where we're able to get predictability, right? The greatest attribute of a professional golfer is the swing. It's consistency, it's predictability. But we have some dangers that we also need to address, some hidden dangers. Danger number one here is one of the silent hidden dangers in your IRA or 401k, whether you realize it or not. We're going to get into that. Then we're going to get into danger number two. One reason most people or advisors can't or won't even show you predictability income, right? We're going to talk about that 4% rule a little bit. And danger number three, the one thing you must eliminate from your financial strategy if you want to truly get ahead. So let's dive into each one of these here. Danger number one. If you were to rephrase danger number one, it would be this. For decades, as Americans, we've been handing over our financial future to the government. We've done it through vehicles like IRAs, 401ks. See, because the truth is that an IRA or a 401k is not a sole proprietorship. It's not something you own outright. So what is it? It's called a partnership. See, a partnership. But every time you contribute money to an IRA or 401k and your employer contributes money on your behalf, that money goes into a partnership. So who are the two partners in this partnership? Well, one is you, of course, and the other's who? That's right. That's the government. Uncle Sam. He's our silent partner. Now, here's the real problem with this partnership. If it's truly a partnership, who controls the split of the ownership? Is it you? No, it's not you. The government controls the split of ownership, and they can change that split at any time simply by raising or lowering taxes. And I don't know about you, but I don't see Uncle Sam's appetite getting any smaller. If anything, it only seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That's why we're going to get into secret number one. Yes, secret number one in our financial swing is learning how to take back control. We must take back control of our financial future. If you don't, you're handing that control over to the whims of the government, and they'll take what they need based on their priorities and leave you with whatever is left. This is why it's so critical that we help you take control back. And that's exactly what we're going to empower you to do starting today. So let's commit to controlling your financial future. The government taxes us no matter how we earn our money. That includes Earned income. Sorry about that. Salaries and wages. It includes passive income, things like rent and leases. And it includes portfolio income, interest and dividends. No matter the source, the government is going to find a way to get its share. We're going to come back to this in just a moment because there's an important insight I want to share with you. And here's the idea that I want you to hold on to for now. If you don't have earned income, passive income, or portfolio income, but you still have money, then what money may not be subject to taxation? Hang on to that thought. We're going to come back to it. See, the government has three primary ways to raise taxes on us. But before I get into those three ways, let me ask you a very important question. By show of hands, how many of you believe future tax rates are likely to be lower? Yeah, I didn't think I'd see any hands, but how many of you, by raise of hands, think they're going to just stay the same? Well, maybe. That's a nice thought. Once again, not too many hands. But then, how many of you think they're going to be higher? There we go. Everybody's raising. Yeah, they're raising their hands. I see it. Yeah. I mean, with all those hands going up, everybody sees the writing on the wall. It's no secret, right? Everybody sees that future tax rates are most likely going to be higher. Well, folks, if that's the case, you need to ask the following questions. If you believe future tax rates are most likely to be higher, then what should you be doing right now? Because if we're not going to set back, we're not going to allow the government to continue to raise taxes on us. And there's three main methods that they do this and how they raise taxes on us. Multiple ways the government does this. The first one, they just raise the tax rate, right? The second, they manipulate tax brackets and thresholds. And third, they eliminate deductions. The key to understand this is they don't rely on just one of these methods. They rely on all three, often at the same time. So let's take a closer look at each one, starting with tax rates. Okay. Now, what's the highest federal income tax rate we pay right now? 37%, right? And if you're in the highest tax bracket today, the maximum federal income tax rate you pay is 37%. Now, what's the highest tax rate we've ever seen in this country's history? So we're going to go all the way back to 1913 when they introduced income tax, okay? The highest rate Americans have ever paid, what do you think it is? 50%, 60%, 70%? It was actually higher than that. The highest federal income tax rate in the United States, the US history, was 94%. Yes, 94%, highest in history. Most people can't even fathom that, right? It's hard to believe that right here in this country where we live, the tax rates were that high. Now, right now, the federal tax rate's 37%. So guess what? Historically, the top tax rate is averaged around 55%. So right now, the politicians in Washington are saying, well, we're below the historical average. This is exactly what they're talking about. We're just below the average. Then the argument is, well, we need to raise tax rates to get back to where they had been historically. Oh, man, could you imagine? Yeah, I don't think so. You might even be rolling your eyes right now. But that is the argument they're making. And here's what is actually more important to understand. Raising or lowering taxes is the method we pay the most attention to, but it's actually the least effective. Raising those taxes, the tax rate is the least effective way the government raises taxes on us. That's why we all need our focus over here on these other two categories, not on the tax rate. See, while they're quietly raising, they're just being very quiet about the tax rate. They're using these other two methods. Number one, we said The government increases taxes not by changing tax rates, but by manipulating tax brackets and thresholds. Let's go back to 1917. The highest federal tax rate was 68%. Today, it's 37%. Now, if I ask you, would you rather live in 1917 and today? Most people would say, I'll take today. Fair enough. But let's look at it more closely. Let's assume we have an American today earning $500,000 a year after deductions. That's high income, $500,000, $750,000 a year, right? That's good income. You agree with that? At that income level today, you're paying somewhere between 35 and 37% federal income tax. Now, that same American, same job purchasing power, transplant them back into 1917 with the equivalent dollars earning $500,000 is $20,000 a year. $20,000 a year back in 1917. So you might assume that they're going to be paying taxes near the top, right? Close to that 68% range, maybe. At the very least, somewhere in the upper tax brackets. So we have 1917 there, right? 68%. The same American making $500,000 today, 2026, right, is paying 35 to 37%. There's a 200% increase because that tax rate, back in 1917, was only 12% on that money. 12%, not 68%. So how did the government do that? Well, they didn't do it by dramatically raising tax rates. They did it by slowly and quietly manipulating the tax thresholds over time. Now, think back to when you were a kid. You were in science class. Did you did you guys ever discuss did you ever discuss the most effective way to boil a frog? Now, this might sound weird, but it was an experiment we did in high school. Has any Did you learn about that? The best way to boil a frog. Would you just throw it into a pot of boiling water? No. Now, if you do that, the frog would jump out immediately. The most effective way to boil a frog is to stick it in room temperature water or cool water. The frog's going to sit there calm. It's the water he's used to. Then you slowly turn up the heat to the point where it's boiling. See, you can boil that frog to death and he doesn't even know what is happening. It just sits in there until they're dead. See, the government has been doing that for the last 100 years. They've been slowly heating things up, slowly changing tax brackets, thresholds. See, we are like the frog. We're slowly getting boiled to death. So we got to understand this and learn. It's very critical here that we take the time to go through this. And the fastest way to move people into higher tax brackets is inflation, right? Inflation is going to be the fastest way to move people in higher tax brackets. See, we're at a rate, inflation's at a rate right now. We're at hyper speed right now, you could say, much higher inflation rates than we've ever experienced in the last 20 years. We're seeing this rate accelerate where people are going to have their income, it's going to have to go up. Their income's going to have to go up in order to keep up with inflation. In order to pay for that same gallon of gas, that same gallon of milk, that same loaf of bread, their income has to go up because the dollar's worth less. So the dollar's worth less. Your employer's going to have to pay you more money. He's going to have to charge more money. Everybody's going up. But just because your income's going up, does that mean your lifestyle's going up? No, it's going to bump you into a different, higher tax bracket, though, where you owe more tax. But your lifestyle didn't go up. It didn't. As a matter of fact, it might go down because now you're paying more in taxes and inflation's through the roof. So you have less money left over, even though your income went up. So you can see inflation is the fastest way to move Americans into a higher tax bracket. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening right now before our very eyes. Now, the third way the government raises taxes on us is eliminating deductions. In fact, our system is designed so that when you retire, you lose the three largest deductions. And this is one of the main reasons people do not find themselves in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Instead, more of their income becomes exposed to taxes. So, what are those three deductions? The first one, you lose your mortgage interest deduction. See, you retired your house. We hope your house is paid off. You don't have that deduction anymore. Um, Second, child dependency deduction, right? We had our children, they grew up, we retired, they're growing up, they're supposed to be out of the house, but what's happened lately? We call it the boomerang effect. They went out of the house, now they came back into the house. It's a boomerang generation. They grow up, move out, move right back in again, and you can't write them off anymore. No more dependencies on those, but they're taking money away from you probably, right? It's costing you some money. No deduction there. And then our largest deduction here is right before you retired, our IRA, our 401k contribution. See, right before we retired, what are most people told? Shove as much money as you can into those accounts, as much as you can, right? But right now, you're not contributing anymore. You're done. You're supposed to be pulling money out. So every dollar you withdraw now is exposed to what? It's exposed to taxes. Yeah. So many retirees don't end up in that lower tax bracket. Many end up in the same bracket. And quite often, they end up maybe even in a higher one. I've seen it where retirees' income it's gone down, but their taxes went up. Crazy, right? But more of their income became taxable. Their gross income went down, but their taxable income went up. So what can be done about this? Well, let's talk about the impact of taxes now, because taxes are something we absolutely need to pay attention to. In fact, for most people, taxes will be one of the largest, if not the largest expense they'll pay over the course of their retirement. So what do taxes actually do to our money? Let's go back to the miracle of compound interest and that paper folding exercise. And I want to simplify it. And we're going to start with just $1. Okay, just $1. If I gave you a dollar and doubled it, that dollar became two, two became four, four became eight. You understand, right? 20 times. If I did that 20 times, just doubled it 20 times, that's over $1 million. Okay, compounding interest over $1 million. Now let's see what taxes do to this miracle of compounding interest. Now go back to that original dollar and let's assume that every time that money doubles, you have to pay taxes just on the interest, just on what grew, not on the principal. And let's just make it easy, 25%, okay? So your dollar grows to two, you pay 25% on the growth. That leaves you with $1.75. Not too bad, right? $1.75. Now you're going to double that. You're up to 350. Again, you pay taxes on that growth. And you continue this process, doubling the money, paying taxes on the growth, paying taxes on the growth. You do this 20 times at 25%. Instead of ending up with $1 million, guess what? You're going to end up with far less. How much less do you think you're going to end up with? 300, maybe 500, maybe $600,000? But in reality, every time you pay that 25% tax on that money, after it doubles, you're going to end up with $72,000. Crazy, isn't it? $72,000. And that's just federal income tax. We haven't even put state income tax on there. And if you live in California, that state income tax can be from 8 to 13.5%. They're talking about higher tax rates. People continue to leave, so they need to generate more income, higher state tax there. So instead of $72,000, if you just added 8% to this example, every time on the growth, every time that money grew, you would have $27,000. This is what taxes do to individuals and money. See, they erode the miracle of compound interest. They quietly destroy it over time. And that's why understanding this is so critical, because once you understand it, you can begin to protect it. Even strategies that simply defer taxes don't actually solve the problem, right? They just delay the problem. That's why what we're going to talk about next is so very important. I hear tax deferral all the time. They think I'm good. I'm not paying taxes while my money is growing, right? Yeah. So deferred taxes, it just doesn't disappear. It just turns into larger taxes later. So in many cases, tax deferral simply results in a bigger tax bill down the road. Instead, what we really want to focus on is the advantages of having your money grow without taxes. This isn't about tax deferral, it's about tax-free growth. And I want to show you what it can actually look like because most people today are simply deferring taxes, often inside IRAs and 401ks, without even realizing the long-term impact. How many of how many of you have money sitting in an IRA or 401k? Probably most of you. Most people I talk to. How many of you like to see a simple strategy you can consider, one designed to help you pay the least amount of taxes possible on those accounts? And if that sounds like something you want to learn, then listen very closely. What I'm about to walk you through is what I call a strategic rollout or strategic conversion. And to make this real, I'm going to show you an example from a client I worked with recently. I'm going to introduce you to John and Mary Smith. I've changed their names, obviously, to protect them, protect their privacy, but this is a real client scenario. I met John and Mary when they were 62 years old, and at the time they had approximately $1.9 million saved in their IRAs and 401ks. And I was like, wow, you guys have done a great job. Well done. Nearly $2 million in retirement. That's impressive. Congratulations. Now, when John came to me, he was very clear about his objective. He said, I'm 62. I'm going to slow down, but I'm not retiring yet. I plan to retire at age 70 and a half. John, why 70 and a half? For most of John's working life, that's when the required minimum distribution or RMDs begin. For many of you today, that age has moved to 72. But for John, 70 and a half was always the target. His plan was simple. Keep working just enough to cover his expenses. Stop contributing new money to his retirement accounts and let the IRA and 401k continue to grow. His advisor believed they could average around 7% a year. Okay. And to be fair, if John's only goal was not to run out of money and he could live off his RMDs while earning 7%, he probably would have been okay. That's what I told him. I said, you're going to be okay, John. And John said, Robert, that's exactly what my advisor told me, that I'd be okay. Then he said something very important. If I were satisfied with just being okay, I wouldn't be here. I want to know what I can do better than okay. Then he shared this saying that his father taught him. And I remember this saying, good, better, best, never let it rest until good gets better and better gets best. So I told him, yes, John, there's absolutely something we can do better. And that's when we explored what I called our strategic rollout. So we took some time with John and Mary and looked at their situation, identified the sweet spot within their income tax bracket. And this is something we can do for you as well. It goes back to the question I asked earlier. Do you believe taxes in the future will be lower, the same, or higher? If you believe they're likely to be higher, then the logical question becomes, should we consider paying taxes now while the rates are relatively lower? That's exactly what we explored with John and Mary. We discovered what John could strategically withdraw $200,000 per year starting at 62 years old while paying the least amount of taxes possible over his lifetime. Instead of waiting until RMDs forced withdrawals later, potentially at a higher tax rate, we started taking action immediately. After taxes, John would net about 160,000 per year, and we redirected that money to what I now refer to as a tax-free bucket or a laser fund. We did this every single year. Now the question becomes, how does this strategy compare to simply leaving the money inside an IRA or 401k? Let's fast forward. It's 5 years into John's retirement. He's 75, and he had kept everything inside his IRA or his 401k. His required minimum distribution for that year would have been about $163,000. See, now he's required, he has to pull out $163,000 to avoid a penalty. Just as a reminder, if you fail to take your RMDs, which begins at 72 now, there is a 50% penalty on the amount you were supposed to withdraw. So in John's case, not taking the RMDs would result in $80,000 penalty, an $80,000 penalty. But to avoid that penalty, he takes a $163,000 withdrawal. By avoiding that penalty doesn't mean he's avoiding taxes. See, he still owes regular income tax, about $56,000 that year on that money. But could you imagine if he didn't take the RMDs? He would still owe the taxes plus the $80,000 penalty. That penalty does not replace the tax, it's on top of it. So after taxes, John and Mary would net about $107,000 that year to actually spend. Now let's compare that to the laser fund strategy we built for them. Using this strategy, the structure, the vehicles, and the approach, we showed them that they could withdraw $233,000 per year. And we didn't start at 75. We actually started at age 70 when John retired. Now, I ran that income all the way out to show him how long it would last, and it lasted past age 120. Past an age 120. So 50 years of income. I finally stopped the illustration at 120 because John was laughing. He was like, Robert, stop. I'm not planning on living to 120. Okay, fair enough, right? But what that shows is they're not going to run out of money. In fact, during the first 5 years of retirement, from age 70 to 75, they could choose to withdraw about $1.4 million that they actually get to spend in those first 5 years. See, in contrast, if he would have relied solely on the RMDs of his IRA and 401k, he would have netted only about $551,000 after taxes during that same period. That's a difference of nearly $1 million in just the first 5 to 6 years of retirement. People, here's the key point. These early retirement years are when you have the most energy, the best health, the greatest opportunity to truly enjoy your money. Instead of focusing or forcing them to wait until age 85, 90, 95 to access more of their wealth, we're going to give them the ability to recapture those golden years and actually make those years golden again. If we fast forward all the way to age 100 and John and Mary kept their money inside their IRAs and 401ks, both passed away by that age, they would leave behind approximately $1.2 million net after taxes for their children and grandchildren. Not too bad, right? $1.2 million, still not too bad. Nice start for those kids. Over their lifetime, though, they would have spent about $4.8 million. This comparison clearly shows the impact, the strategy, not just on income, but on lifestyle, legacy, and peace of mind. Now we see that here, right? We see the difference under the laser fund. If John and Mary, they would leave behind more than twice as much, $2.6 million at the same time. They would have spent about $7.2 million That gives them a total net asset value of nearly $10 million over the same period, using the exact same money and resources. Now, I don't know about you, but when you compare 9.8 million to 6 million, that's more than 50% increase, right? Now, let me ask you this. How many of you could benefit from a 50% raise? That's the power of what we're teaching here. That's the impact, the strategy behind the laser fund. Now, that brings us to danger number two. Danger number two, sorry, is inflation, the fear of running out of money. So let's take a closer look at that. Yes. This is exactly why most advisors won't show you illustrations of taking money out of your retirement account. They talk to you about it in theory, but they won't actually show you on paper. And the reason is simple. As soon as they illustrate it, the problem becomes very obvious. One of the numbers often they show you that you could run out of money. That's one of the numbers they show you. And two, that leads to a much bigger question. Why does this happen? So many people run out of money in retirement because they're focused on the wrong objective. Folks, if you want to get this right, you have to start with the why. Why am I saving money? And then, why are you growing money? Well, for me and most of my clients, the answer I would say is very simple. I save and grow money so someday I can access it or spend it. That's the whole point. We don't save and grow money just to look at it. We just want to watch an account balance go up. We save it one day so we can actually use it. That brings us to secret number two. You must focus on the correct objective, the ability to access your money. Because if you ask almost any expert on Wall Street the same question, you take the time and ask them, when is the best time to withdraw money from my investments? You'll get the same answer every single time. Never. Never take money out of your investments. Why? Because Wall Street wasn't designed for distribution. It was designed for accumulation. It was built to put money in, not take it out. And that's where the disconnect happens. You're not saving money, you're just parking it somewhere forever. But you want to access it one day. So the goal then, we have to design a strategy that supports your goal. So I'm going to help you do that. What I want to do is I want to break your financial strategy, your financial swing into four different phases. We're going to separate this out here. Phase one, the distribution phase. Phase two, the accumulation phase. Phase three, the distribution phase, right? Phase four, the transfer phase. Now, let me ask you a simple question. If these are the four phases of retirement planning, which phase is the one where you actually get to access your money? That's right. It's phase three, right? Phase three, the distribution phase. So that's the phase we have to focus on. The real question is, though, how do I end up with the largest account balance? What's going to help generate the most amount of income at the same time in my life when I need it the most? See, when we build and implement these strategies that we teach in the Laser Fund, we've been able to create a tax-free payout in the range of 6 to 10% for our clients consistently for decades. Let's put that in perspective. Able to generate that income 6 to 10%. You have the same $1 million, 6 to 10%, 60 to $10,000 per year, tax-free. Now that compare that to the traditional 26 to $40,000 after taxes. Which one would you rather have? In fact, there's the real power of this approach. I don't even need a full $1 million anymore to produce the same or better results than a traditional strategy. When you can do more with less, what do we call that? Call that being smart, don't we? And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Be smarter with our money. Now, we don't want our future to look like this old, dying battery where we are constantly worried about whether or not the money will outlast us, right? No, we don't want to worry about how much do I have in my accounts? Is my money gonna be there when I'm older? No, we want it to look like a generator. How much money can my accounts send me each month and continue month after month, generate the most income for us? This approach helps us to avoid that, what I call the retirement dilemma. Because most people reach retirement with money scattered everywhere. IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, deferred compensation plans, Social Security savings accounts, CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, real estate. They just got stuff everywhere, clubs slung everywhere, right? Yet very little of that money is designed to effectively and predictably produce income. And that's the problem we're solving here. Something very important to think about. If all your money is invested in those areas, they all share one thing in common. All these areas. They all share one thing in common. Taxes. That's right, taxes. One of these assets is either currently taxed, eventually taxed, exposed to higher tax in the future. So, what we're introducing today is simply but a powerful idea. It's not just wise, it's essential to have a portion of your portfolio insulated from taxes, especially future taxes. Because if taxes rise, and history shows us that they do, you want part of your money positioned where taxes can't erode. That's the role this strategy is designed to play. I'm not saying you need to move 100% of your money. Absolutely not. In fact, most people, that wouldn't even make sense. This is not about moving everything in one direction to become lopsided. No, that's not what we're saying here. Good financial planning is about one thing, balance. Finding the right balance. For some of you, it might mean 10, 20% tax-free strategy. Others, it could be 40, 50, 60, even 70%. There's no one size fits all answer here. So our goal is to help you identify the mix that optimizes your money, reduces unnecessary risk, gives you the best chance of making your money last as long as possible based on your goals, your tax situation, and your retirement timeline. That's what smart planning looks like. To help you do that, we're going to come back again to these four phases of retirement, right? Because here's reality. Most people spend their entire lives paying taxes in every single area. They pay taxes in the contribution phase. In the accumulation phase, they're paying taxes. And the distribution on their gains. And then when it's transferred, paying taxes some more. It's like crawling towards the finish line, a financial finish line, never getting to quit. Never, you just continue. Now, if your goal is to have the most money available at a point in life when you need it most, that would be the distribution phase. So let me ask you an important question. If you could eliminate taxes in only one of these four areas, where would you eliminate it? Which phase should it be? Hopefully you're going back to that exercise about the dollar doubling, right? What taxes did the miracle of compound interest? What happened to that miracle of compound interest? Yes, because the first phase where taxes must be eliminated is the accumulation phase. We have to protect the growth. We have to stop taxes from eroding the compounding effect. Now, once you understand how to eliminate taxes in the accumulation phase, what's the next phase we should eliminate taxes from? Contribution or distribution? How many of you think it's contribution? How many of you think It's distribution. And how many you think, man, I'm not sure. Just tell me. Just tell me, Robert. Let me simply put it this way with this example. Right here with this example, sorry. Imagine you're a farmer in the spring. When you go to buy your seed, you're given a choice. You can avoid paying taxes on the seed when you buy it, but if you do that, the consequences is you have to pay taxes on your entire harvest in the fall. Or you're proactive. You choose to pay taxes on the seed in the spring. And if you do that, the reward is simple. You get to enjoy your entire harvest tax-free in the fall. So let me ask you, which would you rather do? Does that make sense? Are you tracking me? You understand what I'm saying? I'd much rather pay taxes on the seed and enjoy the harvest tax-free. That's exactly how smart tax planning works. If paying taxes on the seed and enjoying the harvest tax-free makes sense, then why are so many people encouraged to do the exact opposite? Why are they told to protect the seed and delay taxes? The answer isn't that advisors are wrong or acting in bad faith. Don't, it's not what I'm saying. It's a traditional financial planning that is built around accumulation, not distribution. See, most strategies are designed to keep assets invested, grow account balances, defer taxes as long as possible. And when success is measured by an account size, deferral feels logical, doesn't it? But here's the issue. If you enjoy, if your goal is just to grow money, but to use it efficiently in retirement, then the objective changes, right? All those taxes, that changes. At this point, it's no longer about protecting seed, it's about maximizing the harvest. Especially if you believe future taxes may be higher, paying taxes strategically at a known controlled rate can have a powerful advantage. That's why many choose to pay on the seed. They enjoy their harvest later. See how important that is? Which brings us to danger number 3. If you really want to get ahead financially, the most important thing to eliminate from your strategy is simple. We want to make sure we avoid or eliminate losses. Losses hurt more than gains. A 50% loss requires a 100% gain just to get back to even. That's why some of the most successful investors in the world, people like Warren Buffett, focus first on avoiding losses and only second on pursuing gains. See, Warren Buffett says the number one rule in investing is simple: don't lose money. In fact, he said the rule number one is so important. When you get to rule number two, he says, don't forget rule number one. Why is he emphasizing this so strongly? Because if you started with a certain amount of money and right out of the gate you earned 50%, great, woo, 50% return, that would feel awesome. Boom, it goes down 50%. And then the market turns again and you earn 50%. Yay, great. And then it drops 50%. Down 50%, up 50%, like a roller coaster. Where are you then? See, a zero gain. You're back to zero. You haven't accomplished anything. See, that assumption is based on simple math. Money does not work on simple math. It works on compounding math. It uses multipliers, not addition. That's why losses have such a bigger impact than gains do. Let's look at that math again. So you start with $100,000 over here, right? We go up 50% to $150,000. We go down 50%. The market turns. Now we're down to 75,000. But listen, it goes back up 50%. We're back up to 112, but now it goes down 50%. See, what's our real return? What's our real return on that money? Looks like things are averaging out, but it's not averaging out. It's a negative 43.75%. That's dangerous. Losses don't cancel out gains, they compound against you. This is why you need to understand a 50% loss must be followed by a 100% gain just to get back to even. A 50% loss must be followed by a 100% gain to get back to even. A 25% loss requires a 33% gain to break even. 33%. And a 33% loss requires a 50% gain just to get back to where you started. That's the problem. Losses don't just hurt, they set you back, and it takes far more effort to recover than it did to lose the money in the first place. Going back to Warren Buffett, what he taught, what did he teach you? Rule number one, don't lose money. Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. Because once money is lost, it takes an exponentially more work to get it back. So the real question becomes, how do we avoid losses in the first place, Robert? Because when you put your money into something like the S&P 500, what happens? It goes up, it goes down. Then it goes up again, then it goes down. Call it heartburn, right? Could it even be your heart rate spiking when it goes down and then it's just how do we avoid these losses? Can we figure out a way to avoid losses? If we can do that, we can change everything. What I'm going to show you next is how we can avoid losses. See, even inside the S&P 500, we can use this strategy. The strategy we're going to use is called indexing. Now, the S&P 500 itself is an index. And like any index, it will give gains. It will have gains and it will have losses. See it here, here, there, right? But investors say that's fine. But first, you have to eliminate the losses. That's exactly what indexing does for us. Rule number one of indexing, 0% floor. The very first rule of indexing is this, that guaranteed 0% floor. What does that mean for you? The market goes down, you don't lose money due to market decline. You're guaranteed not to lose money. How would you feel if I told you last year you're guaranteed not to lose money? What about the past 2, 5, 10 years, even 20 years ago? How would you like to have that protection? Capturing gains when the market goes up. Now, the next question becomes, how do we capture gains when the market goes up? Well, we're going to talk about a couple different ways. Two ways, though, is participation rate. A participation rate, in simple terms, how much of the market do I gain or do I get to participate in if I have a 100% participation rate? So if the market goes up 8.9%, you get 100% of the 8.9%. Pretty simple, right? But if your participation rate were only 50%, you would get half of that, say 4.5%. But with a 100% participation rate, which is what typically happens, you would get that 8.9%. And if the market goes down, you get zero. Now let's say the market goes up to 32%. Woo! We're going to get 32% increase on our money, right? Well, that sounds incredible. And it's almost too good to be true. So then we're going to talk about factor number two. It's called a cap or a threshold. This brings us to the second factor. Sometimes it's called a cap, sometimes called the threshold, but we can label it as a ceiling. So it's a maximum return you receive in a given year. Today, most caps fall somewhere between 8.5, 13%. So let's use an 11% cap here. The market goes up 8.9%. Then market goes down, you stay flat. So we can see it right here, right? The market goes 8.9, goes to zero, because there's your floor. You have your cap here at 11%, 11, 4, 8, 11, 0, 0, 11, 2, 11. See, we can see how that works, right? Much rather have something that looks like that. It's a lot easier to gain when your money just stops growing and pick back up again. You're just losing a little bit of time, that's all. So much easier, right? So much better. So let's take the time to recap just real quick. The three core strengths of indexing. One, you don't lose money when the market goes down. Remember, Warren Buffett said, don't lose money. Rule number two, capture all the locked in gains. Once those gains are credited, it's locked in. It can't be taken away with market volatility, market downturn. Rule number three, forgot to click these. Point to point reset growth. Okay. So we're going to talk about some of our cap strategies, threshold strategies that we can implement. Now that you know, understand how these work, they can definitely dramatically improve your long-term results. See, my mentors in our firm, we've been doing this for longer than almost anyone else in the country. We've seen these cycles, we've lived through the markets. We know what makes sense to make it move and when it doesn't. See, the experience I have backing me is what allows us to help clients take full advantage of indexing, not just safely, but strategically. So now we can capture those potential gains again, right? And then we don't have to worry about the losses. Even this year, we saw some returns bounce back using strategic threshold planning. We saw returns as high as 61%. That can only come with the experience of our team. Now look what it really means in dollars. If you invested $330,000 directly into the S&P 500, we have three different comparisons here. By March of 2020, you would have grown that money roughly to $631,000. However, inside a laser fund, using the same market with our strategy, expertise layer on top of that, you could potentially see $1 million. Same growth or even higher. You could see $1.6 million. How are we going to see? How do we get from 1 million to 1.6 million? That's a difference, right? But that's what we aim to bring you are these gains right here, not these gains. And these are tax free. Smarter growth, right? Greater efficiency, better outcomes. So now with that understanding, let's talk about that next question. What exactly is a laser fund? Right? What is a laser fund? And how does it work? Well, the reason this works is not because of some loophole, some gimmick, it's too good to be true, right? No, the answers are written all into the Internal Revenue Code, and they're all there for everyone to see. That is a big book to read, and a lot of people don't read it and they don't understand it. And they've been there for over a century. But see, politicians, large institutions, affluent families, they've been using these same principles for decades. They've been using them quietly, consistently to protect, grow, and transfer their wealth. What we call this is a laser fund. It's spelled out directly in the tax code, right? We're going to talk about this first tax code, Section 101A, the Internal Revenue Section code there. This dates back all the way to 1913. The same year Congress first established a federal income tax law. From the very beginning, lawmakers created a specific rule and incentives that favored certain types of financial strategies. Strategies designed to encourage long-term stability, capital reformation, and protection. Why does this work? The answer is simple. Because it was intentionally designed to work, and it has been working for 100 years. Now, I want you to start looking at life insurance policies a little bit differently. I want you to separate the risk. And now you got to ask yourself, how much risk does the insurance company have, and how much risk do I have? Because when you add those two together, that's what equals the total death benefit. Let's use a simple example. If you have $1 million life insurance policy, ask yourself, if I were to pass away, how much of that $1 million is actually paid by the insurance company? And how much of it is paid by me? If none of that money is yours, if you didn't build any value inside the policy, then the insurance company is carrying all the risk. And if they're carrying all the risk, that means you are paying them to take it. That's how traditional life insurance works. We're talking about flipping this model on its head, though. In theory, what if the insurance company had little to no risk and you carried the risk instead? So now imagine this. You have $1 million life insurance policy over time. You built $1 million inside that policy using your own money. If you pass away tomorrow, the insurance company would still pay out $1 million. But every dollar that you paid out would actually be your money. And here's the key distinction. Because that money is paid out as death benefit, it's received as income tax-free. Not a loophole, it's the tax code. That's the power of a properly structured life insurance policy, the death benefit. See, no more risk. See, the answers are found in the Internal Revenue Code sections in law, in tax law. Okay, we're going to start out with section 101 of the Internal Revenue Code. There's also 72E. This is the growth free section. Okay, and then 7702. Tax access this money tax free. I'm going to pause for just a second. I'm going to let you go off the way you've probably always thought about life insurance because what we're talking about here is not traditional life insurance as most people understand it. Instead, we want to introduce you a new way of thinking about life insurance, not just as protection, but a strategic financial tool. When it's structured properly, life insurance can serve a very different role in your overall financial strategy, one that aligns with income, tax efficiency, long-term planning. Let me show you what this looks like. If you want to start thinking about life insurance more like real estate, because most people understand real estate far better than they understand insurance. So here's your life insurance policy in a five-story office building. Now, if you went out tomorrow and bought a five-story office building, how would you make money with it? Would you lease it out? Probably, right? You lease out that building properly, it can turn into a powerful cash flow asset, a true cash cow. But what happens if you buy that same building and leave it vacant? Are you going to make money? No. In fact, not only will you not make money, you're going to lose money. You still have maintenance costs, taxes, insurance, expenses, no income, but you still have to pay those things. So here's the key principle we're going to talk about. To make money with real estate, you must fully utilize the asset. You have to lease out the building. And the same exact concept applies to life insurance. The equivalent of leasing out a building is what we call max funding. The max funded laser fund is simply a life insurance policy that has no vacancy, no holes in it. If you have vacancy inside your life insurance policy, then you don't have a laser fund life insurance policy. You just have a traditional average life insurance policy. To create a laser fund, the policy must be structured intentionally so that every available dollar is working efficiently. When there's no vacancy, that is what I mean by max funding. And when the policy is max funded, it can become a powerful cash flow asset, like a fully leased piece of real estate. Now, there are three laws that govern your ability to properly max fund inside a life insurance policy. There's rules, right? They're governed by the government. Three key tax laws. We have TEFRA, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act. So you hear us talk about TEFRA, okay, and the 101A. The Deficit Reduction Act, DEFRA, okay, DEFRA allows us to have growth tax-free, and then the Technical and Miscellaneous Revenue Act, TAMRA. Now, here's the good news. You don't need to understand this stuff. The laws are at a technical level, but you do need to make sure your advisor you're working with understands them thoroughly. If if you bring these tax laws up to them and they don't know what they're talking about and they want to structure an IUL for you or a life insurance policy, they don't know what they're talking about. See, you must comply with all three of these laws to qualify and access the favorable tax treatment fund in the Internal Revenue Code, sections 101A, 72E, and 7702. If these aren't followed properly, the strategy does not work. So every advisor we work with are trained, are pros at structuring policies within these tax limits of TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. These laws don't eliminate life insurance, they define it. Think if I want $1 million life insurance policy, why don't I just put in $1 million? See, the tax code doesn't allow us to do that. We can't just completely put it all in at one time. That's what these laws clearly state. You can never own 100% of the death benefit. There must always be amount of risk retained by the insurance company. See, that percentage of death benefit you're allowed to own increases as you age. When you're younger, you're allowed to own a smaller percentage, and as you get older, you're allowed to own a larger percentage. And this is exactly what allows us to design policies that are max funded, tax efficient, and compliant while still qualifying as life insurance under the law. Let me give you an example. See here, we were talking about age 35. Age 35 here, 30 and a 55-year-old, a 75-year-old, each owns $1 million life insurance policy. Now, under the tax laws we just talked about, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA, there are limits on how much of the death benefit each person is allowed to self-fund. Here's how it works. At age 35, the 35-year-old is only allowed to self-insure for $215,000. This means that $215,000 can come from their money. The remaining $785,000 is the insurance company's problem to worry about. Now, the $215,000 doesn't just sit there. It can grow over time inside this policy, and it reduces the company's risk. But at 55 now, fast forward, you can have up to $412,000 of your own money in there growing. Okay? And the 588 is the insurance company's risk. And at 75, you see what I'm doing here. You can have $740,000 of your money growing inside that policy, and the risk there for the insurance company. So all three individuals, a 35-year-old, a 55, a 75-year-old, each have $500,000 cash they want to place into this laser fund. Each person has the same $500,000. The difference is how much insurance risk are they required to purchase to comply with the tax laws? See, the 75-year-old only needs to purchase an additional $190,000 of risk, resulting in a total of $690,000 in death benefit. While the 55-year-old must purchase a policy approximately $1.2 million, and the 35-year-old must purchase a much larger policy at $2.5 million with the same amount of money going into it. Cost of insurance is risk age-based. The cost is the same for the 75-year-old. He pays the same cost to place his $500,000 laser fund as the 35-year-old does, but most people assume the opposite. They think if you wait till you're older, the insurance costs too much. They don't know what they don't know. If an advisor tells you that starting one of these strategies at age 75 costs more than starting at age 35, they're flat out wrong. The younger individual must buy far more insurance to contribute the same amount of money. The older individual buys much less risk, which equals the cost. That's how the math works. It's how the tax code works. That's why the age is not a disadvantage in this strategy. So if you invested the same amount of money, the growth will be nearly identical regardless of your age. The results are remarkably close across all ages, and this is just as important to understand. And the reason we're doing this, what we're really pursuing here is the ability to create and own your own death benefit. We're intentionally taking ownership and responsibility for that death benefit ourselves. Now, it's critical to understand this distinction. Life insurance policies are not investments. Investments are subject to what? Market risk. They go up and they go down. What we're doing here is different. We're using a properly structured life insurance policy as a financial chassis a structure designed to protect the capital, eliminate unnecessary risk, allow money to grow efficiently under the rules of the tax code. That distinction is what makes this strategy work. Now, let me be clear about this again. A life insurance policy is not an investment. You purchase life insurance for one primary reason, the death benefit. Now, who determines how much death benefit you want or need? You do. And your needs change over time. Of course, they're going to change over time, right? Think about that logically. If today I determine I need $1 million death benefit based on my current age, responsibilities, and time horizon, but tomorrow I'm older than I am today. But tomorrow I won't live as long as I do right now. So if I don't need my money to last as long as I once did, then I don't need as much death benefit as I get older. So here's the key question. How can you reduce your death benefit while you're still alive? Or can you reduce your death benefit while you're still alive? Absolutely. And this is where the strategy matters. The money inside this policy represents your own money. Then reducing the death benefit simply means reclassifying part of that death benefit back to you. When it's done correctly, and let me correctly, that money still comes to you as death benefit, tax free. If I have $1 million inside my policy and I reduce the death benefit to 900,000, that 100,000 comes directly to me. No income tax, no capital gains tax. I can do it again next year because the remaining value continues to grow. I can reduce it, I can access it, I can control it. I'm in control of my financial future. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to show you how to structure this properly, how to stay compliant, and how to use the death benefit intentionally while you're alive. Again, think of this laser pointer, right? Think of this light, this insurance policy like a bucket, okay? And the size of the bucket is determined by you. You're in complete control of that. Once you know the size of the bucket, we can help you structure it properly by applying these three tax laws we talked about, TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. Our job is to make sure the size of the bucket matches the amount of money you want to put in to it while staying fully compliant with the tax code. Once that bucket is established, it can grow larger over time, compounding growth. There's no limit on how much the bucket can grow. The only limitation is on the initial size, which is based on how much money you want to contribute to structure this policy correctly. There is, however, one more important rule we must follow under TAMRA. If you want to place a large sum of money into the policy, you can't put it all in at one time. Instead, that contribution must be spread out over a 5-year period. Okay? Because spreading it out over 5 years is what allows you to access your money tax-free during your lifetime. This is critical. This is a critical step in maintaining a tax-favored treatment of this policy. We'll walk you through this in much more detail when we have the opportunity to sit down with you one-on-one and apply it specifically to your situation so that you can see exactly how it'll work for you. So we can see how that fills that bucket up, right? To recap, there are three major opportunities we want to help you capture to move forward today. One, how can you benefit from the tax-free vehicles? So the more of what you earn stays in your pocket, not lost to taxes. Two, link how your money's linked to inflation, purchasing power, how to keep up with that, can you outpace the rising cost of living? That's our goal, right? And then to use number three, indexing for safety, giving your growth potential while protecting you from market losses. See, when these three elements work together, they create a powerful foundation for a long-term financial strategy with confidence and control. The three greatest strengths of a properly structured IUL are liquidity, safety of principal, and rate of return. When you pursue this strategy, you're able to achieve the same types of results we've consistently delivered to our clients. We take what's considered a atypical and we make it typical. Okay. This just isn't about owning a life insurance policy. It's about how that policy is designed. Remember, the swing is so important. We're creating a self-insured death benefit, which allows you to take advantage of the same strategies that politicians and affluent families have successfully done for well over a century. Now, I want to thank you for your time. I know we went a little bit over an hour, and I know your time is very valuable. I hope it has been well spent. That being said, I possibly can't cover everything you need to know in this single session, right? The truth is always in the details, right? It's so important that we take the time to explain even more to you. That's why I encourage you. I invite you right now to make sure you take that next step. If you have any questions, please write them down. Take a few moments to write those questions down. Book an appointment with us so you get more clarity. Yes, a free consultation, absolutely free. And when you do book a consultation, I want to make sure you have access to all this information. You can make a confident decision. You know, I want you to view this as a special opportunity with me to ensure you don't miss out on this. This is important to make sure you understand this better and see how your money can work for you better tax free, right? Can't. So when you fill out the survey, um, you're going to get to speak with me. You're not only going to receive a free consultation with me, but I'm going to send you out personally a laser fund book that is worth $29, right? I'm going to cover the shipping as well for you. For everyone on here today, I am going to cover the shipping of this book for you. I want to make sure you can understand it. This is a great book. It's a two-sided book. It's a left brain and a right brain. So if you do better with stories, um, and understanding how that works, then you're going to use the left side of your brain. You're going to read that part. But if you do better with facts, then it's the right side of your brain. Okay. So we just want you to fill out the information. Make sure you book a time with us. Then we're also going to, when we have that consultation, we're also going to show you how we can structure this for you and to do a customized IUL income report. Okay, that right there in itself is a value of $597. See, we're going to do that for you for absolutely free. So we got the Laser Fund book, the customized IUL report, a value of $926 there. Okay. Very important that we take the time to learn that. Book that time with us. We'll give you that report, a detailed report on how we can customize this fund for you. We're going to talk about how zero is your hero, protecting your growth. We're going to show you projected tax-free income. Projected. And we're going to compare it and show you how your Roth or IRA, if we convert that over there with historical returns, and make sure we tailor it for your situation, right? It is important that we do that for your direct. So there's no obligation on your part. You're going to receive all this for free. Once again, just an overcap there of what we're going to get out to you. We're going to get that book out to you as well. Now, after the class, you're going to see something that appears like this. This is my calendar. Book a time, fill out that information. I can't send you a book if I don't have that information, right? So I need that information. When you come in or when we have a consultation over the phone, after you book that consultation, I'm going to make sure we get you out that book. So please indicate the hour you'd like to be most convenient for you, for one of us to call you back. We do have other members on our team as well, but more than likely, you're going to hear from me first. I take this very seriously with all my clients. Please fill out that survey. Make sure you respond to all that. And we just want to take the time to thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us and know more about how we can help you out with your own personal laser fund.